Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Simon from Scar Illustration, and I hope you're keeping well. Today I'm going to talk about how I go about creating a painting study. This is the second cave study video that I've done, and if you'd like to check out the first one, then I'll leave a link in the description below. Let's dive in. Whenever I'm doing these types of studies, I'll make sure to find the right photos to work from. Sometimes this is a fairly quick process, but usually it takes a while. It's always worth taking the time to get the right photos, rather than just picking any old photo. Especially in this case, as it's for a commission with very specific requirements. I want to make sure that I'm speaking the right visual language when I get started on the final painting. As you can see here, I'm starting off with a basic sketch. I've tried many different ways of starting studies, but I've found that using a loose sketch is the fastest and most efficient way for me. Once I start actually painting, I don't want to have to keep going back and adjusting the placement or dimensions of all the different elements. I just want to get going on the painting. Once the sketch is complete, I'll fill the entire canvas with a base color, which in this case is a mid-brown tone. I find this a lot more forgiving than trying to start the painting with a harsh white color on the canvas. Then I'll start blocking in the main areas with a large soft brush, so I have an approximate idea where everything is from a color perspective. For this study, I decided to throw in the light flare that's right behind the character, as I wanted to get that position correctly early on. One of the many benefits of using digital tools is that I can work in whatever order I choose. If I was painting this traditionally, I would have to work on the background elements first, and then move on to the midground and finally the foreground elements. But here, I could just move between different layers and adjust as necessary. In this case, I decided to block in the main foreground rocks to get those shapes close to the photo, and then work underneath those to fill in the mossy green areas on the rocks. In this way, the shape edges will be a lot cleaner, and it's also more efficient time-wise. Next, it's onto the background rock face on the left side of the scene. Once I got some of the shapes in, I noticed that the mossy areas in the foreground rocks needed to be adjusted, so I went ahead and did that. And then it's on to the rock face on the right. I wanted to get the mid and shadow shape areas in pretty quickly before getting into any details. As you can see, I spend a fair amount of time zoomed out, as I find this gives me a good idea of how things are looking overall. And it also stops me from getting into any of the details too early on. Finally, I started to tackle the back rock face. I left this fairly simple, as I knew that the light beams would cover most of this area. Just blocked in roughly where the main light and shadow shapes were. Next, back onto the right side rock face. I decided to flip the painting at this stage, as I wanted a fresh eye before working on the main cracks and crevices. As you can see, I'm not spending a lot of time in any one area, but bouncing around as I develop things overall. Moving on to the foreground rocks again, I'm now refining some of the shapes there whilst we're checking the reference photo. Flipping the painting again, it's now time to tackle the figure. As the figure is basically a silhouette, I concentrated on just getting the proportions right rather than adding in any details. Once the figure was more or less done, I moved on to the light beams. For doing these types of things, I'll usually use the pen tool as opposed to the brush tool. Not only is it faster, but it's also easier to manipulate the shapes. I'm paying close attention to the reference photo so that I can get the light beams to look as realistic as possible, erasing out areas to suggest the light fall off. Next, I went ahead and tackled the all-important light flare, as well as adding the blue light bloom on the left side. I wasn't really happy with the initial shapes, so I amended those as well as adding in some orange tones on the edges. After that, I spent some time developing some of the details on all the rock faces, carefully observing where the light falls on the reference photo and then adding that to the sketch. Nearing the end of the study, I decided to zoom out so I could see how everything balances together as a whole and make adjustments where needed. Hope this was helpful, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Please consider liking this video and subscribe to my channel. Have a good one and keep on painting.